Today we welcome Paul Cash, Chief Rooster of Rooster Punk, the 2021 Drum Award Agency of the Year and co-author of Humanizing B2B. Welcome, Paul. We are in agreement that an org chart is made up of humans, and so businesses consist of org charts, and each of those people are humans with human needs and human emotions, and that's sort of your platform in which you write about and talk about and run your company on the fact that let's not forget the fact that we need to emotionally within B2B. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's this golden era of B2B. The evolution of marketing in B2B is becoming more human and less product. And we started putting audiences first, not product first. And while that might sound quite trite, it's actually quite a big thing in B2B. And so that's creating lots of change.
One of the things that I sort of felt like, and then it actually was written in the forward by the person who wrote the forward, was you're like an evangelist for this message. And so what I would say to you is you are speaking within, you're sort of preaching to the choir, as we say here. You're speaking within the B2B marketing community. You're encouraging them to see through a different lens, be better, do better. And I definitely saw that in Cannes Lion, as you saw, where there's a big effort to lure people to understand that it's not the same old B2B.
We wanted to look at a philosophical view about where B2B needs to go and how it needs to kind of move forward. And that's what humanizing is about. We talk a lot about humanizing now, but really what we're talking about is, for the first time ever, this like experience economy. If you were in B2B in the early 90s, it was very much like the information era. It was about just literally bombarding customers with facts and figures about your products. And then we went into this performance marketing era for probably 15 years, where everything was about the product and everything was about leads. And over the past few years, we've moved into this experience zone. And that means for the first time ever, we're talking about customers and employees, because people now are thinking about what's the experience I need to create through my brand that makes my business meaningful? What's the sales experience I need to create for my customers so they feel more engaged in the process? And that is a strong manifestation of what humanizing is about. It's about thinking and putting people at the heart of it and not just thinking about products and traditional marketing, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. The book and your messaging is extremely concise, clear, thought out, incredible. I mean, covers all the bases. We're going to get into all of that. But it speaks, again, it's preaching to the choir. You're speaking to marketers. Have you thought about sharing your incredible message and message delivery skills? I mean, they're really incredible. To the exact people who are holding up the transformation. They're the ones that need to be converted. So I'm referring to the CEOs that you refer to in the book.
Yeah, so, and you're absolutely right. The challenge and the way that senior marketeers need to communicate with their board, specifically the CFO and the CEO, to instigate this brand-driven change is a tough one. The thing I think has changed is that the B2B Institute at LinkedIn have done an incredible job at really standing tall and creating all the content that every agency would ever want to arm themselves with to go and talk to a client. Working with the Aaron Gabas Institute, all the things they come up with is amazing. So we've never had a more richer, independent body writing and advising and creating content that is stimulating thinking within B2B agencies and within clients. And a lot of that is penetrating the C-suite because it's intelligent, well thought through, consolidated. It's coming from LinkedIn, so there's an independent bias as much as you can have about it, which helps. It's not coming from an agency that might have an ulterior motive. And so what I think we are starting to see a change.
Along the lines of the LinkedIn B2B Institute, you're right in that adds a tremendous amount of credibility. And certainly since now there are B2B awards, when you talk about exponential versus incremental growth or innovation versus iteration, you really kind of get in the mindset of a CEO.
And we know that's the answer because the incremental feeding of the machine is only going to create incremental results. And it's amazing how more companies, more CEOs aren't thinking about brand as being that transformational engine. And I think one of the challenges we've got is that there is so much intellectual stimuli that is coming into B2B from different sources that we can easily get lost in over intellectualizing and focusing so much on how do we do this? How do we make sure we represent these distinctive assets in this way and that and this and that, and not so much on the outcome, which is the brand bit. And we get lost in the reason why people want to work with agencies is because you're looking for that disproportionate economic advantage. You know, you spend £1 million and you get 300 million back because you've repositioned. That's the magic of creativity. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of education needs to go on there.
Let's talk about where you refer to the language of emotion. It's
Mhm.
a major component. It's the premise, whether it's the neurological wiring of the brain, but it's emotion that makes things human.
The first thing is the language of the product. We've graduated up the ladder to the language of the customer. And then the final language, you know, I call it the language of emotion, but it's the art of storytelling is, you know, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. Yeah. And how you can use emotion to connect, to make people do things they might not otherwise do, to see the world from your point of view, from their point of view. But ultimately, you know, it's making them feel good about themselves, you know, and when they do that, they feel good about you.
I want to add an emotion that you definitely address, but it's, as I was going through your book, it just became like more, it like just started pounding louder and louder and louder. And it's the emotion of survival, which is very not much on the consumer side and is very much at every level of a business organization, up to and including the CEO.
It's only the very few who are the natural mobilizers and champions and innovators and who want to push and prod and poke and go in that direction are the ones that obviously create the fame for themselves and the fame for their business.
I wanted to do a deep dive into the psychology of survival. It led me to the survival mindset, and you're not going to believe what came up. Survival mindset actually advocates for the suppression of emotion. It's just, you're going to tap into emotion that simply does not exist because it's been intentionally suppressed.
I guess that's where procurement departments have come into play. You know, they're the people there trying to block the emotion and put in systems in place like Ariba to kind of take the emotion out of the sales cycle as much as they possibly can, because they know as soon as they start buying emotionally, the price is going to go up.
B2B people, as you noted, will buy when they feel positive from whatever the messaging, or, you know, whether there's a salesperson involved and there's like, you know, just less and less. The messaging perhaps makes them feel positive. I would make it a little more specific. We not to get too granular, but it's when they feel safe.
Yeah, this whole paradigm of safe trust, which has been, you know, a big thing in B2B for many, many years. To me, it's about likability. Likability builds trust as far as I'm concerned. Likability is transformational in B2B, and we don't spend enough time thinking about how do I create the most likable brand in my category. You know what I mean? And likability is hugely important, a very human quality for sure. So I'll say yes, so trust and safety and likability, they're all hugely important. And they're things we can engineer. They're things we can control and build towards, for sure, which is, you know, what marketeers want to hear. The Binnett and Field stuff says B2B brands need to invest 46% in their brand, 54% in their lead gen. I don't know many B2B brands that do that. It's more like 90% in lead gen and 10% in brand. So trying to get the balance right, I think, is important. The data says that if you get that balance right, you will be more successful. It's just, it still takes a bit of a leap of faith for CFOs to go, right, okay, let's give you all that money and put it into brand, and we're not kind of sure what we're going to get back in this quarter. And we kind of say, no, brand is your future cash flow. I mean, it's the thing that's going to come back when that lead generation process you're so comfortable with runs out. The phrase I've always liked is marketing is like asking somebody on a date, brand is the reason they say yes. You'll know from the States that this newly created role of the chief revenue officer, to bring the sales and marketing functions together under one person who's maybe more commercially aligned and using revenue as being the KPI behind all that is an interesting move. My perception really is that revenue is something that sales can be measured on. There's a whole bunch of KPIs that marketing can be measured on. But my view around brand is that it's there more to drive likability and popularity. I try to look at, business isn't just a sales game to be won or lost. The best brands treat it as a popularity contest. How can we be the most popular brand in our category? Because if you're the most popular, by association, you're probably going to have the highest revenues.
Right.
Yeah. So you're just trying to come at it. So what creates popularity? What creates fame for my brand? How do I go about? And that's more the KPIs and mechanics behind brand.
I think Cannes Lions having the award will really shine the light on. I think it's a big turning point for.
It was interesting, because I think there was a lot of noise made by LinkedIn and some of the big agencies were part of bringing that Cannes whole new entry to life, but no single independent B2B marketing agency won anything. All the awards were given to the big B2C consumer agencies, or the big consumer agencies who've got a B2B client. So I think it was, a bit of a kick in the stomach for B2B agencies, pure play B2B agencies, because they didn't really win anything. I want B2B to be the best it can be. I want all the agencies to be challenged. And if we're not as good as our B2C cousins, because clients want to give them the work, then we need to up our game and evolve and change and grow. There's just an extra level of intellectual rigor that goes with B2B that probably doesn't exist in B2C on the same level. And so, you've got to equip yourself. You've got to want to be curious. You've got to dig deeper. You've got to want to challenge yourself. And some people like that, and some people don't. Some creatives hate it. Some creatives love it. And I think people find themselves in B2B because it is rewarding. You are challenged. There is something new happening all the time. Every time you get a brief, it's something, it's something different. So that's what we're trying to do. Let's build great companies. Let's create amazing employee experiences. Let's create great customer experiences. Let's change the world, and let's do it in B2B.
Just like I said, you're the guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an honor speaking to one of the industry's leaders. Thank you, Paul.
Christine, it's been great. Thank you. Appreciate